I call the honourable member Darian.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to take a call on part 3, and I know my colleagues looking at me over there, and I'm part two, and I'm very happy to talk about part 2, which is about the establishment and the membership of an inquiry, and that's right, and it's a very, very important part, and it talks about the kinds of inquiry that will be established and the matters to be specified in the instrument establishing inquiry. And I wanted to talk in particular about the types of inquiries that we could have under Part 2. And I'm sorry that the Minister, Simon Bridges, is no longer in the chair, because I wanted to talk about... Oh, no, no, look, I'm really, really happy that Chester's in the chair, and he's a very competent minister. Yes, all right, well, I'm getting to that, Mr. Chair.
The full name of the member.
Oh, the full name. Chester Burrows. Chester Burrows. Okay, the Honourable Chester Burrows. I'm very happy he's in the chair, but it would have been better if the Honourable Simon Bridges had been here, because what I wanted to talk about under Part 2 was the potential for an inquiry that could be established under Part 2 into the forestry industry, into safety in the forestry industry, because we have been calling, Labor has been calling, and has the industry, the forestry owners and the forestry contractors, and in fact everybody in the industry, anyone that's associated with the industry, the families, others, they've been calling for an inquiry into the industry that could be established under Part 2. And it seems to me that Part 2 would fit very, very nicely into the types of the forestry inquiry that the family members of workers who've been killed in the forestry industry, not only in the last few years, but in this year in particular, Mr. Chair. I think we're up to number 6 now of workers killed in the forestry industry. There could be an inquiry established that would be very fitting under Part 2, and I'm very keen to hear from the Minister and the Chair about why why that particular inquiry cannot be established under Part 2 of this bill, and why we have everybody in the entire industry, from the workers, from the forestry owners, from the forestry contractors, calling now for an inquiry into an industry that has obviously got some problems. And sure, you know, the Minister of Labour has continued to say that he set up a code of practice and that's got all the answers, and he says he has all the answers. But there is obviously a systemic problem in this industry that needs to have an inquiry, and I think that it's very good to have the discussion about the potential for inquiries. I mean, I know my colleagues have talked about a range of other inquiries. Carol Beaumont's talked about inquiries into loan sharks, and I know that my colleague here sitting next to me would like to talk about other inquiries, but an inquiry into the forestry industry would seem to me to be a priority. And in fact, the Transport and Industrial Relations Committee right now has a petition in front of it calling for an inquiry. Now, who has that call come from? It's come from the family members of those who have been killed in the forestry industry over the last few years. And we're up to, as I said before, number 6 this year. 6 people killed in the forestry industry. That's 1 a month, but something like 28 over the last 5 years. So it is a serious issue. And I think what people are struggling with, Mr. Chair, is understanding why there is so much resistance from the Minister of Labour to an inquiry into the forestry industry and forestry safety, when you have everybody saying this needs to happen. And the petition I referred to earlier is on behalf of Carolyn Callow, who's the mother of a worker who was killed in forestry, and they have lost loved ones, and they have written to the Select Committee and told their stories about what it's been like for them what it's been like for them to lose a son, a husband, a partner, in terrible accidents in the forestry industry. So it seems to me that part two, requiring, Mr Chair, that the inquiry must act independently, impartially and fairly.
Honourable Member.
Thank you. Would be absolutely fitting for us to have for this Parliament to be thinking about an inquiry into forestry. Now, let's talk about the forestry industry and what an inquiry might uncover. Forestry in New Zealand is twice as dangerous as Australia and up to 7 times as that in the UK. Now, what's happening there? Now, the industry is fragmented. There are 9 major forest owners who use up to 300 contractors, and all of this sort of information could be uncovered under part 2 of this inquiries bill. It's a really important sector, Mr Chair. You know, I know you want me to go back to part 2.
It's not an inquiry about forestry.
Well, it is actually, because it does give the opportunity under part 2 to talk about exactly what the establishment and membership of an inquiry could be. So let's talk about that then, Mr Chair. Let's talk about the establishment of an inquiry into forestry. Who would that involve? Well, it would involve, obviously, the Forestry Contractors Association, the Forestry Owners Association, because they're saying already they think there should be an inquiry. It would involve the Council of Trade Unions and the families who have also been calling for an inquiry. And what the only outstanding party at the moment is the government and the Ministry of Business.
It's often the case.
Well, it's often the case, that's true. Well, the Department of Labour, as it used to be called, but they were in denial about this. But I think, you know, the people that would be involved in that inquiry are pretty clear, and all we're waiting for really is for Simon Bridges, the Minister of Labour, to accept that it's time for an inquiry into this industry, and part 2 would fit extremely well in terms of the establishment and membership of an inquiry. It would also talk about the matters to be specified in the establishment of the inquiry, and in fact there is plenty of evidence around what the matters may be. For example, under clause 7.2, the matters are a matter of public importance. It's a subject of inquiry. Now, what other matter of public importance could there be other than 6 people have lost their lives this year? And haven't we learned anything? Well, apparently we have learned anything according to this bill. We have learned something from the Pike River Mine Commission of Inquiry, and that was about 29 workers losing their lives. And then it goes on to talk about not only the matters, but who's going to be appointed to be members of the inquiry, and the events or matters that are relevant to the inquiry and so on. I think that all of the good thing about this piece of legislation is it actually makes it easier for the Minister of Labour to set this up. It takes away the excuse that he's had so far, which is there doesn't need to be an inquiry because he's got all the answers, and he's set up an approved code of practice, which is just a rewrite of something that Max Bradford did in 1999. I think it would show, if the government was serious about this inquiries bill, which of course we support because we want to see more inquiries, if the government was serious about it, they would say forestry, safety in the forestry industry is an appropriate inquiry to be held under part 2 of the inquiries bill. And I hope that we will see, with the passing of this bill, Mr Chair, that we will actually have the Minister of Labour will be a little bit more open to the idea. I don't understand what his reservations have been. I don't understand what the problem is about opening something up and saying, well, what's the problem? Because we clearly have a problem with people dying in the forestry industry. What's the problem with actually opening it up and saying and asking people for the answers, or asking people to give evidence and information? But he seems to have a problem with that because he thinks he has all the answers. But however, as I said, Mr Chair, I think part 2 is a very, very good platform for the establishment and membership of an inquiry into safety in the forestry industry, which people are calling for, which everyone is calling for, the families, the forestry industry, the owners, the contractors, the public, and so on, and it's time there was an inquiry.
The question is that Part 2 stand part, but before we do that, we have to do some amendments. First ones, in the name of the ministers, they're set out on SOP number 330. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Part 2 as amended stand part. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Part 3, debates on clauses 10 to 28, stand part.
Mr Chairman.
I call the honourable member Dennis O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. New Zealand First will support the bill to update the law